Hey, thanks, Wes.
Cool, man.
Welcome to another episode of Failing to Success, the show that's all about hearing from business owners who have overcome obstacles and failures to achieve their goals. I'm your host, Chad Kaleky, and I'm here today with Wes Schaeffer from the Sales Whisperer. He has a sales training and marketing company, and he's going to share some of the experiences that led him on the journey to have a successful company now for 17 years. Wes, thanks for being with us today.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
So, Wes, 17 years is a long road. Most companies, most businesses, 7 years, they cap out if they make it that far, right? So you're like the 1% of 1%. So talk to us about how this happened, how you ended up in this space.
Oh, because I'm big-headed and stubborn and was frustrated working in corporate America. I was in high tech, and there was a lot of turmoil in the early 2000s after the dot-com implosion. And but I kept investing in myself and kept trying to get better, and ran across a sales coach, and I took his 12-week course, and then we hit it off, and that laid the foundation for me to go out on my own. But it was tough. I've been married 27 years now. We've got 7 kids, and and I've always been the sole income earner. So, it was a bit nerve-wracking at times. But if you're stubborn enough, you can make anything work.
Yeah. How did you cope with the stress of not only having a very large family, but running a business?
I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah, just
You're either cut out for it or you're not.
yeah.
Sometimes you're kind of thrown into it. I started laying the foundation in 2006. I was still in sales, so I had a W-2 job. And then we were looking at old pictures actually just not long ago, and the company called me. I was on vacation on my birthday, and they called to lay me off.
Wow.
So it was early 2007. And so I just said, all right. I mean, it was earlier than I had planned, but it was like, I guess it's time to do my own thing full time. And so, I was glad I started laying the foundation.
And did you jump in right away? That was it, full time into your own deal?
Yeah. Yeah.
How were the first couple of years of doing that?
Hard.
Yeah. What type of challenges were you encountering early days?
Well, everything. I mean, even back then, I didn't have a website, didn't have a merchant account. So clients, I would invoice them. They'd mail me checks. They'd wire money. So it was just so different. And I was cold calling, doing live events. So it was, but it was just grinding, right? Grinding it out, making sales, just making it happen. And then over time, I just expanded my offerings, started using more technology, started automating things, and so I could scale.
Early days, did you take on clients that, you look back and you're like, why did I do that?
I had a few bad clients, but I mean, the nice thing was I could pick and choose who I worked with. Um, the funny thing is that the worst clients I had were later on when I still sell software for small businesses for their CRMs, and basically everything I was doing by hand, I learned to automate it, and I found software and tools that I could use, and I could also resell as an affiliate or as a certified partner. And so helping those guys land deals got me into more issues with poor fit, right, than I would have taken on my own. But yeah, there have been a few bad ones.
Is there like one moment where something just truly knocked you off your feet and then later on you're like, okay, I got through that?
I've had a lot of things. I've invested in deals both before and after. I started my own thing and lost money in deals. One guy did some fraudulent business, set it up, shifted the partnership structure into my name. The IRS called me up and said, that A, I lost all my money in the deal, and B, I owed $80,000 in back taxes and penalties. So that's always a fun conversation. Another deal I invested in with some friends. I thought they were friends, but you get to find out when the shit hits the fan if they're friends or not. But here in California, it's called the Board of Equalization. So we had a franchise, and I was the only California resident, so they came after me for, I don't know, $300,000. So
Wow.
we lost that business, and I had a 5-year lawsuit that I won. But I mean, still, when you get these calls, you're like, is this a prank call? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it kind of floors you.
The worst trouble I've gotten in was putting too much trust in other people instead of myself,
Yeah. What was something that was just a big win that you're like, oh wow, I've really done it?
I remember the first time I just made an online sale without talking to a prospect. I was like, hey, this stuff works. It was a little $97 sale, but I'd put everything together. I put a website together, a landing page. I built, the digital product. I built the follow-up sequence. So this person found me, found the website, found the offer, bought, and was delivered the training with me never speaking to her. And it was funny. We're still friends to this day. We worked together for a while later on, several years later, but we stayed in touch. So, small little victories like that can carry you a long way.
Yeah, and it's amazing that you were able to go. I mean, you were working for somebody else, and you jumped in, did your own thing, put up the website, and that first victory, right? It means a lot. It's like people who hang up the $1 bill, right? This is the first dollar.
Yeah, exactly. Literally same thing. Yep.
Yeah. So along the way, with this sales training, have you had some clients who just really just like blew up based off of you coming in and doing this with them?
Yeah, we've had some great wins. Early on, had a little family-owned daycare in Florida. We just fixed their stuff, but what it ended up, the main thing was we fixed their sales process, how they dealt with prospects at the actual daycare. And they had, remember, they had like a 96 student capacity, and they were 22 students under. So they could add 22 new students based on their infrastructure, current teachers, everything else. And so I helped them fill that up in 87 days. The owner, he did a 45-minute interview with one of my partners back then, and we still have it. But that added $250,000 to their bottom line. That was way back. That was in 2010, right? So it's a lot of money for a daycare, and it was all profit, right? Because they already had the teachers, had everything in place. They just had unfilled capacity. So when you see things like that, and that's in a maybe a little bit of an obscure industry, right? It's not high tech, it's not crypto, it's daycare, a daycare center. But even back then, it was $10,000 a year to put your kid, $200 a week, right? 50 weeks a year, it's $10,000. So when you get 22 new students and create a waiting list, so when I see that, I'm like, okay, the stuff I'm doing works, and it was cool to see that. And it wasn't the website, it wasn't SEO, because we got their website ranking, we fixed their lead magnets, things like that. But it was the human process, because they had more leads, they had more phone calls, but they weren't growing the business. And so it was how they interacted once they got on the phone, when they got face to face. And still to this day, that matters. Technology can help, but AI and all this stuff, at the end of the day, it's trying to emulate a human. So if you're not a good human, if you're not good face to face, if you're not good with a prospect when the money is on the line, AI or whatever else won't solve those problems. If you don't have a good recipe, it doesn't matter how nice the restaurant looks. Nobody wants to go to a nice place and eat crappy food. They'll go to a crappy place and eat great food, but they won't go to a great place and eat crappy food. Right?
Yeah, it's very true. Yeah, it's that sales process. Once you get that down, that's the secret sauce to get these companies to go. And you're right. A lot of people focus on like these trendy top AI. Let's create an AI business, a crypto business. Hey, run a good daycare. You'll pay your bills. You'll make some money.
Yeah.
So if there was an entrepreneur who's just starting out, what kind of advice would you share with them? And maybe some experience that they're going through of their own failures and setbacks. What would you tell them?
Well, are they trying to figure out how to even start, or where? What do you
Well,
mean?
let's say they're jumping from being an employee into starting a business, right? They want to own their own financial future. What are they? What can they expect?
Depends on how well they set things up, right? At the end of the day, you have to find a need and fill it. And so you can make money, as a contractor. You can make money helping chiropractors market. I mean, there's literally a million ways to make money. So you got to figure out like what's motivating you. Are you running away from something or towards something? Are you running away from a crappy boss, crappy career? Are you running towards like you want to solve some major pain in the world, and you're motivated internally by that, right? I think too many people jump into the entrepreneurial world with their eyes half closed, right? They've been sold a bill of goods. All these guys, look at me, I'm a private jet, got a Rolls Royce, drives me to the private jet. It's like whatever. Most of those are fake, and even those that are true, it's like, is that really you? I mean, most of them are single guys, or maybe they just got married. I mean, it's just like that wasn't my life, right? When I went out on my own, I got out of the Air Force. I went into corporate America. When I left the Air Force, I had a wife, had a kid, another one on the way. When I launched into doing my own thing, 2006. So I got to do the math. I had 5 kids. The 6th was on the way, and we had the 7th later. So, I had to be careful with how I jumped into things. So make sure you've got a safety net. I've had over 600 episodes of the Sales Podcast over 10 years, and talked to a lot of entrepreneurs that made the jump. And, most of them, those that have money saved up, they prepared for their breakaway. They kind of knew what they were getting into. I tell people, you need to give corporate America a little more credit. The grass isn't always greener. Maybe you do work for a crappy boss and they demand too much, blah, 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 but maybe you're not as good as you could be. Tom Brady showed up at Tampa Bay and won the Super Bowl. Okay. So, he brought his A game and turned things around. So are you giving them your A game? And either way, even if you are with a crappy team, it doesn't mean you should stop performing, right? Show up, give it your best, leave on a positive foot, right? Leave with things good. I went back to I left a tech company in 2002 and went back to them 6 months later because I realized, man, I made a bad switch. I made a bad move. And they took me back because I left on good terms. I made them money. I worked hard, so they wanted me back. So make sure you're giving it your all where you are. Because if nothing else, because look, you want to get into your new thing with some momentum. And if you're half-assing it in your day job, it's going to spill over, So do well, bring that work ethic to your new thing. But you'd be surprised. You may like your current job a lot better if you're really performing, and now you're getting all the accolades and raises. I made great money in corporate America. So I'm just pig-headed and stubborn, but one of my best friends, he's the number one salesman at the number one biggest SaaS company in the world. He lives well. He never had the entrepreneurial bug, right? So
Yeah.
you gotta look into all of that and know why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, and for everybody listening, this comes from Wes, who having 7 kids and a business for 17 years. That's not common. So it's an accomplishment, and his advice is real. Comes from true experience.
Yep.
Well, Wes, if our listeners want to get in touch with you or look more into Sales Whisper, how can they do that?
I'm everywhere online. I mean, you can find just, thesaleswhisperer.com. So my social media is there, but I'm on all the big platforms. I answer, even my cell phone's on there. You want to text me, it's me, right? It's not an assistant. And so I'm pretty easy to find.
All right. Well, thanks, Wes, for coming on the show. And thanks, everyone, for listening to Failing Success. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to follow and rate us. Like, comment, and subscribe if you're watching it on YouTube or as a video. And don't forget to tune in for more episodes on how you can learn from your mistakes and build something bigger than yourselves.